Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We keep on going through our Saturday program here at Automotodrom Grobnik. It is time to start the first race of the Suzuki Swift Cup. Everybody ready on the starting grid. The track is still damp. I've just been able to have a quick jog onto the starting grid and back. And the situation is still sort of neither here nor there. It's not dry, it's not wet. It's still somewhere in between. But these cars, it's a little bit of a different story than from the single-seaters, because they either get slick tires or wet tires. But for the Suzuki Swift, they sort of got permanent semi-slicks, so it doesn't really matter which weather conditions they drive in. You have got the slight grooves on the tires anyway, and that means that there is certain ability to clear water under all circumstances. The cars are now lined up on the starting grid, and if you've been following the Swift Cup for a longer time, for example, also through our broadcasts, then you will find known faces, known names, like, for example, Balázs Hartmann, the car number 505 on your screen. And we're, of course, going to take a look at the starting grid just as soon as it appears on my live timing screen. There it goes, because Balázs Hartmann is actually on the front row of the grid, but he's not on pole position. Pole position is actually on the inside line. If you would take a look at the pit wall, so basically pole position, or the odd numbered positions closer to the pit wall, and pole position is the place that was secured by Gábor Tim in qualifying. So Gábor Tim, the only guy managing to lap under 1 minute 48 seconds, 1:47.448 was his pole position time, and he cleared the rest of the pack by more than 0.6 of a second. Balázs Hartmann alongside him on the front row, and even though it was a big performance difference, or let's say big time difference, even that qualifying was also influenced by weather, and definitely do not expect Gábor Tim to run away from everybody else. It could happen, but I would still assume that we are going to see quite close racing, as we are accustomed to when watching Suzuki Swift Cup Europe. Row number 2, that is Benjamin Nagy in third, and Adam Mesáros in fourth, Daniel Nemes in P5, Bastian Frischmann in sixth, Ester Nemet in seventh from Egon Burkuš, Zoltán Čuty in ninth from András Bilko, Milan Merk, Tamáš Farkas, Zichal Wang, and Richard Král in P14. I believe that, from... we've also got two classes, like usual. We have got the 1.4 turbos and 1.6 naturally aspirated. The turbo cars, of course, leading the way here, as is usual. 1 minute until the start of the formation lap. It is now quite unclear whether this board was already supposed to be up in the air. Either way, we are just... I was going to say minutes. It's not going to be minutes. It's going to be seconds away from the start of the formation lap, which of course means that everybody now needs to clear the grid. Also the grid girls, also the engineers, the mechanics. Everybody now has to go away from the starting grid and just leave the men and their machines at the start. 4,168 meters. That's the length of the track. And as said, the weather conditions are still going to be quite tricky in this race as well. 30 seconds left. So, not the best levels of grip, but it's also not wet. So theoretically, the cars should already be lapping rather close to what they can normally do. But you do see the windscreen wipers on some of the cars still being on. So I would assume that some drops still are in the air here and there, but nothing dramatic. No downpour, no shower. This is something that you wouldn't actually call rain Either way, away we go to the formation lap. Let's get ready for the Swift Cup race number 1 here in Croatia. It is the first of the series of Cup races currently. After that, we're going to continue with the Renault Clio Cup and then the Renault Twingo. Through the middle part of the track, the twisty bit, through the small sort of valley, we are getting towards the rear final sector of the track, and then into the hairpin, which is of course one of the top spots for overtaking at this track. And then we're gonna get back onto the start and finish straight and commence with race number 1. Cars are now getting back onto the starting grid with the man with the red flag at its head. That's where everybody needs to stop. So yeah, this is not going. This is no indication of a race not being able to be started or anything like that, as we just saw in the single-seater race a little earlier on. Everybody will simply assume their positions, and once the red lights go on and then go off, we will be racing. 25 minutes already prepared on the gantry. That's the race's length as per usual. And so there we go. We've got the top 8 cars in the 1.4 turbo class, the bottom 6 cars in the 1.6 naturally aspirated. Everybody already prepared on the starting grid. The green flag is also in the air. Let's get going for race number 1 here in these tricky, half rainy, half dry conditions. So the red lights are on, the red lights are off, and away we go. Everybody trying to fight for any grip that there is, and I believe that it is now Balázs Hartmann assuming the lead immediately after the get-go. Balázs Hartmann leading us away into the first corner. Careful across that curb, it's really slippery, but everybody seems to be safely through. One of the cars just being rather really wide in the first corner. Other than that, no big dramas. And Gábor Tim immediately locked in the fight with Balázs Hartmann, also together presumably with Balázs Nagy, the car number 558. So the top 3 getting slightly ahead of everybody else. Then I believe it would be Adam Mesáros in 4th. This is the back part of the track. Already using the curbs quite a lot, aren't we? With the wipers still on, and really just chopping across the curbs quite aggressively already. So there seems to be grip on them. We will see. They could still be rather tricky if you hit them. And the back end of the grid, also everything rather normal. Gaps opening, pace car returning back to the pits, and the head of the pack entering the hairpin, with Balázs Hartmann leading from Gábor Tim. And there we go, back onto the start and finish straight to complete lap number 1 in this race. Ooh, big one for Gábor Tim. That's what happens if you hit the curb. They are trying to use them, but it's really tricky, because it can really catch you off guard. And Gábor Tim needed to correct a big spin that was starting to develop. However, he managed to do that. Not only that, he also managed to somehow stay together with the race leader. Sorry, not Gábor Tim. Yes, Gábor Tim. From Balázs Hartmann. But Balázs Hartmann leading from Tim. Benjamin Nagy in third from Adam Mesáros. Bastian Frischmann moved up to fifth from the start as he overtook Daniel Nemes. Ester Nemet in seventh from Egon Burkus. That would be your top 8. And then Zoltán Csuti in ninth. And there we go. This is the fight for third. Adam Mesáros got a really good run up the hill and manages to get a rather good top speed into the hairpin, and up into third he moves. It's still wet-ish. Adam Mesáros moving up into third at the end of the second lap of the race. But Balázs Hartmann still holding on to the race lead, with Gábor Tim being really close behind. He really seems to have superior pace, and they are now slipstreaming down the pit straight. Gábor Tim already trying to make a move around the outside. This is going to be rather tight. What about the curb? It doesn't really hold perfectly. You did see Balázs Hartmann understeer a little bit towards the outside of the corner and shutting the door on Gábor Tim. Gábor Tim trying to take a look. This is the further way around, but it will give him the inside line for the never-ending hairpin. So this is already the fight for the race lead, and Gábor Tim manages to squeeze by, pushing Balázs Hartmann down into second. Adam Mesáros also wants to have a go. So there is the change in the race lead. Gábor Tim back into it, having lost his place that he got in qualifying. Careful on those curbs, but they seem already to be quite okay for use. But look at this. Balázs Hartmann in another fight with Gábor Tim. In the end, there is no change in the order, but momentarily it looked like Balázs Hartmann would be able to retake the lead. But Gábor Tim did manage to find a better grip around the outside and just get on the throttle that tad little sooner, which handed him the race lead again. 1:45.509 is the fastest lap of the race that has just been set by your race leader, Gábor Tim. Balázs Hartmann not really too far away. 1:45.8 on his previous lap. That was his personal best. But Adam Mesáros also 1:45.5. Very close to the race leader with his fastest lap. And what's interesting, if we look further down the order, the gaps have already opened up, which means that the fight in the top 4 that we are currently watching is the closest fight you will find anywhere through the grid, which means that the most exciting action right now is developing in the fight for the race lead, which is of course for us what's the most interesting. And up the hill we go again. This is where Balázs Hartmann got his opportunity on the previous lap. He's again trying to slipstream past the other predominantly yellow Swift. And he goes really late on the brakes, but this time he doesn't want to go on the inside, but he very nearly ran out of the road. Just about managed to stay on the black stuff. And yeah, this is again giving a handy little breathing space, handy little gap to the race leader, Gábor Tim. It already appeared that Balázs Hartmann would use the smarter line through the hairpin to actually get a better position onto the start and finish straight. They are still close to one another, really running across those curbs. Ooh, and Benjamin Nagy was already dramatically sideways, but somehow managed to keep his Swift in the correct direction. But that was already a full-on four-wheel drift that I was going to say he was enjoying. I'm not really sure that he was enjoying that entirely. But they are just right on the edge of the grip of those tires. There is one of the slower lapped cars trying to get out of the way of everybody else, and doing so successfully. And across the line we go with Balázs Hartmann being really glued to the back end of the other predominantly yellow car. And look at that, they are just dancing, trying to cling on to every bit of grip that they can find. But Balázs Hartmann did manage to get through and ahead of Gábor Tim. So Hartmann now in the lead. And through the hairpin we go again, but it still stays rather close. Everybody together, back onto the start and finish straight, to another big slipstreaming battle. 14.5 minutes left on the clock. So we are still only finishing the first half of the race. Windscreen wipers full in action. It's not raining anymore, but the track is still damp-ish, which means quite a lot of drops being thrown onto the cars behind. Balázs Hartmann finding a nice line through the left-hander. Gábor Tim didn't have a chance, but this is where he got his overtaking opportunity the previous time. Is he going to try the same trick? No, not this time. Balázs Hartmann saw that coming and he shut the door immediately. This is a very, very long corner where you need to be patient before you go full throttle again. But look at Gabor, so close to Balázs Hartmann. This is not the ideal place for overtaking. Everybody somehow needs to survive through the S's and find the best line to really not scrub off any speed so that you are really quick up the hill here. It's not really visible so much from the drone that it was the big uphill section. Now it's level. This is the back end straight, and it looks like Balázs Hartmann actually managed a rather better exit. And look at Gábor Tým under pressure from Adam Mészáros, just trying to stay around the outside, trying to squeeze his way through, and he does. What a move this is by Adam Mészáros, who is finding his way through. Benjamin Nagy also trying to see if there is anything for him to be had, just as we are approaching the halfway mark of the race. Into the hard braking zone we go again, and Gábor Tým back ahead of Adam Mészáros. So Gábor Tým actually managed to defend his position in the end, and he is back onto the back end of Balázs Hartmann's car. Back up the hill we go. The speed is crucial here, and it seems again that Gábor Tým somehow lost it. So he comes again under pressure from Adam Mészáros. Hard under braking right after the 100-meter mark. And they are really on the edge of the grip of the tires. You could just hear the tires screeching incredibly under the load. But Balázs Hartmann somehow still managing to stay ahead. He's been under immense pressure since the start, and now there's even little touch from Gábor Tým, who's trying to have a look, but this is not a great place to overtake. So he goes back onto the racing line to be as fast as he possibly can through the S's here. He's going to have to survive a little longer through another twisty section, this one, and get another chance up the hill. This has not been the strongest section for Gábor Tým. Now he's going to try it and be quick up the hill. Exactly here. This is where Adam Mészáros always somehow gains. Now they are slipstreaming on the back straight into the hairpin. So is he going to send it? No, Balázs Hartmann covering him off, using the defensive line into the hairpin, now running a little wider. But again, it seems rather quick, this line that he chose, which means that he's gaining those valuable couple of meters. And this is bringing Gábor Tým back under pressure from Adam Mészáros. Slower cars being lapped currently. 9 minutes left in this race. We're also waiting for Benjamin Nagy to come up with something. He's just staying with the group, trying to see whether there's anything for him to be had. But so far he's not been able to launch any sort of move, any sort of attack. Gábor Tým, he is actually having looks very often. And into the hairpin we go, everybody really braking somewhere in the middle of the track. Not really assuming any meaningful line from the lap time point of view. But that's not really what you're after at this point. Balázs Hartmann already running to the inside, maybe to cool his tires down a little bit. Running through the wetter part of the track. Ooh, and something's just fallen off his car. Was it the rearview mirror? No, it wasn't. Something just fell off his Swift, and I believe that must have been the tail lamp. Yeah, one of the rear lights. The right-hand side rear light simply fell off Balázs Hartmann's car. I mean, we did not really see any contact, so it's a little bit of a mystery why it fell off. I didn't see any hit against it either way. Up the hill we go again, pretty much all through the race. We've just been watching the top four in this race, but honestly, if I'm looking through the live timing screen, there are not really very many other close situations. Maybe between 6th place Daniel Nemes and 7th place Ester Nemet, but this one is still far more exciting, and it's for the race lead, so it is for the race victory, and it is for the podium places. But Balázs Hartmann still staying ahead. And just as much as Gábor Tým is not really running out of ideas, he is running out of laps. Hard under braking again we go. Ooh, and that's going to be a crash for Adam Mesaros. No, somehow he managed to stay away from the wall, but he actually got his car sideways and slid onto the grass, which doesn't hold as much as he would be hoping to, and he got really perilously close to the wall. But now back into the race lead, because this is now Gábor Tým trying to have another go. Adam Mesaros actually got his car sideways exiting the first corner. Not really sure whether he lost it on the outside curb. I assume so. Maybe we're going to be able to find that situation yet again and see a replay of that. We have just under 5 minutes left in this race, and this is now bringing Benjamin Nagy into the podium positions. Balázs Hartmann with his car slightly lighter, already missing the right rear light. But he's again not being able to pull away from the other two cars. There are lapped cars about to be overtaken again. getting back onto the start and finish straight. 3 laps to go. If everything goes well, if we stay under green conditions, this is what we still have time for. Cars are just slightly touching the outside curb. They are cutting fully across the inside one. And Gábor Tým sticking his nose down the inside on Balázs Hartmann, which is effectively giving him the never-ending longer outside line for the left-hander there. This is not really the perfect place for overtaking. We are lapping cars, getting past. That's the 1.6 naturally aspirated class that we see there. Seems to be a mistake from Balázs Hartmann. He ran really wide in the hairpin. In the end, he managed to find some good traction. 2 laps left in this race. Adam Mészáros, meanwhile, dropped down to 4th. Luckily, that's where his fall ended. And he is now trailing the leading pack by about 10 seconds. Let's see what kind of a lap time he's able to do once he gets to run in the clean air, because the leaders are doing around, the lap times around 1:44.4, but they are locked in full battles. Yeah, but Adam Mészáros has just done 1:44.8, so he's currently slower than the head of the pack. And therefore there is definitely no chance for him to get back to the fight for the podium places. And this now seems to look good for Gábor Tým. He's really close to Balázs Hartmann, who is now gluing his car to the inside line. Gábor Tým having to choose the outside one, trying to cut back onto the inside. There's touch. Balázs Hartmann saw that coming and he closed the door again. So Gábor Tým had to go off throttle. They touched momentarily, and Gábor Tým lost all the momentum through that situation. That was a bit of a dirty playing by Balázs Hartmann. Interesting tactics that worked for now. And they are now playing for everything, lapping one of the other slow cars. This is the final lap of the race, because in 3, 2, 1 seconds the time will be up, and we are on the final tour of Automotodrom Grobnik in the first Suzuki Swift Cup race of the weekend, with Balázs Hartmann still somehow holding on to the race lead. It is going to be really tight. Just a couple of kilometers left in this race, couple of last shots for Gábor Tým. Honestly, I just see one realistic chance again into the hairpin. He has to stay together with Balázs through the S's here. The track is now pretty much dry. They still have the wipers on because there are a couple of drops here and there in the sky, and maybe they simply do not have time to switch them off right now. They are just concentrating on other things. Of course. Final attempt into the hairpin. Balázs Hartmann covers the inside. He made the rather late move, but nothing unsportsmanlike. And out of the hairpin he goes. He managed to hold on to it very nicely. Balázs Hartmann still in the lead. And he comes back onto the start and finish straight to bring it home in first. Balázs Hartmann is going to win the race number 1 of 2026. Balázs Hartmann victorious here at Grobnik from Gábor team. And Benjamin Nagy, Adam Mesáros is going to come home in 4th. There he goes. And in the end, he dropped even further down. He just went off pace a little bit. He kind of landed in the no man's land after his mistake, which means that he came across the line some 14 seconds away from the top trio. It is then Balázs Hartmann, Gábor team and Benjamin Nagy who are going to end up on the podium together. Bastian Frischmann comes home in 5th from Daniel Nemes and Eszter Nemet. It was actually also quite close between those 3, but no change in the order. Egon Burkuš in 8th from Zoltán Čuty, András Bilko, Milan Merk, Tomáš Farkas, Richard Král and Zichao Wang. So Gábor team, your pole sitter lost the lead into the first corner, then retook it a couple of laps after that, but didn't manage to hold on to that. Balázs Hartmann was the one who took the victory off his hands and is scoring the race-won victory here in Croatia. Benjamin Nagy completing the podium from 3rd.